The new patch is here, and with it comes ranked queues, plus a slew of other changes that has really shifted the meta a ton.
Yeah, some of the advice we gave just a few weeks ago has been totally flipped on its head, but don't worry, we've got all the latest tips and tricks that you're going to need to climb that ladder.
This is Teamfight Tactical Report.
Man,
Woof.
ranked is it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, different beast of a different color, of a different fur type. It whooped my butt for those placement matches, and we learned very quickly that a lot has changed.
Yeah, the meta has shifted. It brings brings a totally different mentality than what we've seen previously in the unranked queue. Unranked queues, I guess that was all there was. The normal queues.
Normal queues, yeah. Previously, we were talking specifically, it's great to have a good economy and to not re-roll and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
and
invest
eventually,
your gold.
Yeah, wait for the late game.
Yeah, exactly. That is out the window.
Yes.
I think what happened is with ranked, the way that it works is the top 4 players, they gain rank.
Yep.
But the bottom 4 players, they lose rank.
Or if you're really low, you don't lose at all. But you need to be top 4 if you want to move forward.
But you gain LP or lose LP based on that, right? You can hit the tiers between, like if you're bronze 3, then maybe you'll hit the, what's it called? The barrier to go down to
2, yeah. It's the LP barrier, basically. It's league system of measuring what your player skill is.
But anyway, so I think this incentivizes a different play pattern, right? So instead of trying to win games, you're actually trying to get into the top 4. You're trying to kind of guarantee that you're in the top 4 because you don't want to lose rank.
Yep, top 4.
So as a result, I think the meta right now in ranked, and who knows if this will change or whatever, but
I think it's going to fall on over to normal too. So even if you're not planning on playing ranked, this is going to be an important episode to listen to.
So it's very aggressive.
Yes, basically aggro, and basically trying to chunk other people's lives fast enough in early rounds where you beat them maybe 5 units still on the board to where they're going to get eliminated first. And even if you don't win the game, you're still going to move forward in ranking by placing in the top 4. So basically just trying to get out of the scuffle.
Yeah, I think, we can port over a lot of our knowledge from a game like Magic, and a lot of games are like this. You have a sort of rock, paper, scissors of different strategies. You can kind of go really aggressive, which is an all-in, put my resources in early, try to push through and win before the other strategies, which are usually like, I'm going to resource gather, I'm going to hold off, and I'm going to have higher tech units later or something like that.
Yep.
You're trying to knock people out before they get to that point. And usually the downfall of aggressive strategies is they peter out near the end and can't sort of close out the game.
Yeah, mid-range is what we'd call a type of deck that relies more on valuable creatures that are going to get you in Magic what were called 2-for-1s. But let's say it's in this game, it's like, you're stun 2 people instead of 1 or whatever, and it's better than aggressive units. So mid-range will just defeat aggro as aggro peters out, and its explosiveness gets replaced by value.
But I think that the reason we're seeing people go aggro so hard is because it doesn't matter if you peter out as long as you're in the top 4. You don't have to win.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you kind of fall off near the end. As long as you got into that top 4, and sometimes you still will get lucky with the RNG, the right champs will come up near the end, even though you're out of resources, you're out of gas, and you still have a chance to win, but at least you're guaranteed to advance as far as those ranked points go.
And a lot of the mid-range players are like we used to play, which is like, take it slow, keep the items on the bench. You're more likely to get wiped out early because you're just not ready to handle that level of aggression.
I mean, again, to use Magic parlance, I think our early advice was to play more of a control game. It was to not spend your gold early, really hoard it, wait until you got that interest going, your value engines are set up, and then win through late game out-resourcing your opponent. Aggro tends to beat that type of strategy, and something in the middle tends to beat aggro. And I think that's something to keep in mind here is that what you generally want to do is be slightly less aggressive than your opponents, a lot less aggressive, and they knock you out before you have a chance for that to pay off.
Right.
If you're a little less aggressive, you can withstand their early punch and then out-resource them later. And I think that's kind of the strategy that has been working for me anyway.
Yeah, getting set behind now feels really bad, especially because the win streak bonuses and everything else and the guaranteed item drops and money drops means that every single player is going to be guaranteed accelerating. You're not going to maybe hit a spot where you're like, oh, cool, the person is aggro, but they didn't get any item drops. Everyone's guaranteed more item drops, and as a result, your opponents are just going to be better on a whole.
Yeah, if you haven't played since the new patch came out, that's the thing they changed about creeps. Basically, in any creep round, you're going to get something. Mm-hmm. So if you don't get an item, you'll probably get a little bit of gold. There's a little question mark box like Super Mario Brothers that pops out.
And you fly towards it and you pop it open.
You pick it up and it'll either have an item or some amount of gold. So you can't just get totally hosed like the first 3 creep rounds, you get nothing. Yeah. You're going to get some gold at the very least. And the gold can be like 3 or 4 gold sometimes, and it can be significant.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference, too, because you need to pick up that chest. Sometimes you have no money left to buy what's on the board. And we'll talk about this later, but those gold things, you actually have to pay more attention than ever, especially in ranked to your board. You can't be alt-tabbing between this game and something else anymore.
So we know that ranked is more aggressive. That's the meta. It makes sense based on where the incentives are placed for how ranked works. And the question is, how do you react to it and use that to your advantage? So we're going to talk about some stuff here, and it is going to contradict a lot of the advice we gave.
Yep, and that's going to be the nature of this show moving forward. You got to keep listening to every episode. And again, we'll let you know on TF Tactical on Twitter if we're really wrong about something or if something changed immediately, but we're going to try and get this out as soon as to you as possible.
Yeah, because as they patch and change the game, stuff's going to change, and the meta's going to shift, and we're going to try and keep up with it. So the first thing here is you got to keep up now. Mm-hmm. We are not in don't spend your gold mode. Like early and even into mid-game, you're going to be trying to spend gold and create a competitive team comp. You just can't afford to fall super far behind. If you play in the old way, which is try to get to 50 gold pretty quickly and live off the interest, you're going to be at 28 life or something. And then once you start to kick in, you just don't have any buffer there. If you get one bad matchup, you'll be knocked out of the game. And so you're going to have to push a little bit earlier.
Yeah, you got to keep up. And the biggest way to do that is leveling. And that's sort of the biggest price point, too. It costs 4 gold to get 4 XP. But one of the things that we've been seeing a lot of is just getting that extra unit early, getting on the win streak early is more important to maintaining your life total than I've even seen the old tactic of losing the first few rounds so you get to the carousel and get a better pick. Well, if you can't, if that better pick lands you in just hot water and you're going to just die further and further, it's not worth it. So leveling, if an extra unit's going to give you a power spike, is a huge way to do it. So assassins 2 to 3 is one of the easiest ones I can say. Instead of having 2, if you're leveling for a 3rd assassin on your board, that power spike of getting 3 out of 6, 150% crit damage is huge and it's going to win you a lot of early fights.
Yeah, that's one thing I would look for when leveling is it's not worth it if I don't have a valuable unit to put in. Mm-hmm. So you need to have something on your bench that you're like, I wish I could really get that out there. That's going to give me a buff. It's going to, complete some sort of composition or do something, beyond just like...
It's going to make a big difference.
If you got like a $1 unit, like an Elise, and you don't have a demon and you don't have any shapeshifters, then paying to level up and get one more unit out, and it's that, is not probably worth it. You probably want to reroll and look for a better unit. Or maybe save that money for the interest, depending in that case. But if I have 2 brawlers out and 1 ranger, and I have a Varus that's sitting on the sidelines, and it's like, okay, I'm going to level up, put the Varus in, and now I get the ranger buff too.
Yeah,
and that's valuable and worth it. I would look for those spots to use your gold early to maintain your board as competitive. Again, everyone's doing this now. If you don't, not only will you lose the fight, you'll lose by more than you were before.
Right. You're going to lose by an extra unit, and you're going to lose more health.
More health.
Yeah, totally.
So at the very least, if you do this, even if you lose, you won't lose by as much, and so you need to maintain your health more than you did. You need to worry about it. You can't just be taking 8 damage early on. It's pretty tough. One thing I also have been doing almost every game, I don't know about you, is it starts and there's the 3 creep rounds.
Yeah.
At the end of the 3rd creep round, before the first round, PvP round, I almost always click that XP button, and I want 4 units in that first fight.
Yeah, in general, I like to play a little more reactionary. So at the end of each creep round, I'll just see, okay, where's everyone at? I'll cycle through the board, and I've seen now almost every person is going for that 4th unit. Now
it's just a huge bump.
It's a huge bump. There are going to be some times when you're saying, no, I can't because I got to buy these units. It fits perfectly into this strategy. But in general, if you can afford it, it's the time to do it.
The only time I'm not doing it is if I've 2-starred maybe a unit or 2. and I feel strong, like that's going to be strong enough to carry me. And also maybe I don't have enough gold now because I did that.
Well, that takes us right to our next point, which is 2-star units in the early rounds, these super aggressive ones, are extremely valuable. In fact, I would even value a 2-star unit or a 1-star unit or a 1-cost unit that turns into a 2-star unit 2 for 1 sometimes. Sometimes a single 2-star unit is worth, or 1 2-star unit is worth 2 1-star units.
Yes.
That was a mouthful.
I would, yes, I would agree with what you said.
But in a shorter fashion, less complicated.
I think it's really important to 2-star the $1 units.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for in the early game. You don't necessarily want to be 2-starring the $2 units because if you don't know this, the $2 units, it costs 6 gold to make them, right? So let's say you got a Varus. You got 2 more Varuses. They're 2 gold each. That makes 2-star Varus. Costs you 6 gold. 2-star Varus only sells back for 4 gold, though.
Yeah.
But, however, Elise is a $1 unit. You get 3 of her. That's $3. And she combines into a 2-star Elise, but sells still for 3 gold. So in that exchange, you've lost none of your gold. You've lost none of your flexibility. And I think this is really important now. Because what we're seeing is with this aggression early, you're kind of just taking what you can get. It's like Mordekaiser, not a great unit. But if you come across 3 of them, you're going to 2-star that sucker and you're going to put it out there because early in the game, you just want to be competitive. You want your board to be as strong as you can make it. But you're never going to get a 4th Mordekaiser, a 5th, a 6th. You're not going to go for that. You're just going to leave that out there knowing like, hey, once I sort of get my comp together, I'm going to sell this thing.
Yeah, because in the beginning, the thing that really matters, later in the game, items and synergies matter. Early in the game, sometimes just literal HP matters.
Yeah.
That's why Brawler has been something that we've been very interested in early as well, because it just gives you a free 300 health just for having 2 of those units on the board. And that's actually a really big game when it comes to the fact that, everyone's working with level 1, level 2 units that are pretty low on health already. So that there alone is a ton. It's a huge bump. It's like having a Locket of the Iron Solari immediately completed for those units.
I have loved Brawler a lot, and I'm using it. I'm not 2-starring any of them except for maybe Warwick. So Blitzcrank, Warwick, Rek'Sai, and Volibear are your 4 early Brawlers. If you get all 4, that's 700 extra HP each. That's like having 3 extra units out. That's how much HP that is. And you don't need to invest anything in those. You're not 2-starring any of those. Maybe Warwick again. I really like that comp, and it's something you can ride early in the game. The last point here, as far as keeping up, is in the past, you could kind of deal with items differently. So you could hold them.
On the bench. Be like, I don't want to build them yet. I'm not losing too hard.
Yeah, and I don't want to waste them because they're hard to take off a unit. What if I want this unit in my final comp, but I don't want it to have this item? So you're like, I'm not going to combine anything. I'm not going to put anything. I'm just going to wait. Now that's another resource you got to keep in mind that you may need to sort of spend earlier on.
Yeah.
And it's another reason to have these expendable units, these versatile comps. If you're going to just go Brawler for that buff and you've got a Blitzcrank that you're never going to 2-star, you're free to maybe throw something on that.
Because you're just going to sell it off later and you're going to have that back. Yeah, that's really important too. Just having like a Phantom Dancer will carry you through a massive amount of the game, and you're going to want that item at the end of the game.
Yep, so you can, but I would recommend putting it on something that you're going to sell, so later you put it on the really important unit.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't want to get that Phantom Dancer stuck on like something that you do want in your late game comp, but you don't want it to have a Phantom Dancer because you don't want to sell it because you want that unit.
I will tell you, there's been so many times where I've 2-starred another unit of the same kind before I get to 3-star level, and I sell the old unit because I want the item and put the old 2-star in for the synergy.
Sometimes you have to do it.
Sometimes you got to do it.
And the last point here is, and we've talked about it a little, is staying open. This is a concept from Magic, is not committing really early. So you want to keep your options as open as possible. This is one of the reasons we're talking about you don't really want to invest in those $2 and up units. You really want to look for those good $1 units, 1-drop units.
Well, in the past, we said that the way to stay open is by getting enough gold that you can roll and re-roll to your heart's delight and get the things you need. At this point, there's another way to stay open, which is drafting what you can see and what you can get, and always making sure your bench is filled, and also getting the whole bench off and buying a new bench if you think things are shifting. But basically giving yourself the best shot every single round to start 2-starring units very, very early, just to keep up.
Yeah. I like what you said, too, because in a past episode, we said, I think this is a direct
Never
quote,
re-roll.
I never re-roll in the early game. Not true anymore. Sometimes you look around, you're like, my comp sucks. I don't actually have, if I XP up, I don't actually have a good option to put in. if I have like multiples, like 2 copies of maybe 2 or 3 different champs, then I may reroll. I may take the shot.
Yeah.
You know, if I have 2 Nidalee, two
Your
Darius,
chances are pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah.
1-2 rerolls. We were doing some of the math on it early on, and at these early levels, when you're going to see a lot more level 1 units, you got a pretty good shot.
So that is something that sometimes you do have to do. So we can't say anymore, never reroll early.
Yeah.
I think you sometimes need to.
Anytime we say never or I always will, just take that with a grain of salt. We should say it at the beginning of every episode. Grain of salt, everything we say, because it might change. You never know.
Okay, let's talk about what I think has become way more important than it did. In the old style, we had talked about you saved up your gold, you lived off the interest, and then you kind of would use all those resources you'd gather to
craft the perfect team.
Yeah, you would like be like, this is my dream team, and I'm going to now brute force it. I'm just going to reroll till I find the pieces.
Yeah, and you could because you had enough gold too, and you're living off the interest.
Now you can't do that because you're pushing earlier. So the amount of resources you have to be more careful with. You can't just willy-nilly be like, I need to find this specific unit. I'm going to re-roll 7 times. You just won't have the gold to do it.
Yeah, as a result, what you're left with is, we used to talk about hinge units, like a thing that you would build your entire composition around. Now your entire team comp needs to act like a giant hinge, which is you're going one way, but if things go south and you need to switch, you have the ability to know what to sell, how to sell it, what to keep, and then what to replace it with, and what to be looking for on the bench as well.
Yeah, it's super skill testing, and it sounds daunting, I know, but there are some things you can keep in mind as you're doing it. One of the reasons we talked about that brawler comp, why it's so easy to sort of put that out there. What I like to do is put the brawler comp out if I can get it, and it's basically those 4 units I talked about earlier. And then I'm not going to invest any more of those, so what I start to do is grab what I can find as it's coming around and build what is going to be my later game comp on the bench. And at one point, I just go, okay, now I'm putting in Wild Shapeshifter, so I'm going to keep Warwick and get rid of everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
And I've already got my 2-star Shyvana, and maybe it's a 1-star Elise, but I'm just going to get the buff, and I've got an Ari and something else, and I'm just like, sell everything that's out there, put this stuff out, and you just immediately pivot to a totally different comp that you've been sort of preparing for.
Yeah, building on your bench and organizing your bench too is great. Always put units that are going to pair up next to each other or even in the same synergies. I usually sort my bench left and right. The left will be the things that are on the board that I might be wanting to build to, and the right will be like, all right, I need to start speccing because this isn't working out, or I'm not seeing the units I need to. So that organization and getting your mental focus on there, it does seem daunting. There's a lot to keep track of when you really take this game seriously and play it in a ranked fashion.
Yeah, you need to be collecting up pairs of units that you know are good and go together. And that so that if, a lot of times I'll be like, I have 2 cannons, I also have 2 Dravens. I don't know. Those don't go together necessarily. Maybe there's certain
there's
comps
some Blade Masters, but yeah.
Yeah, they could. But like if I find a brand, I'm going more towards Elementalist. But if I find, you know, a couple more Blade Masters and Aatrox or something,
Yasuo.
Yeah, then I'm going to go more towards Draven, and or whichever one I find the third of, I'm going to go in that direction. And so I keep 2 of each, and I'm ready to pivot. I'm ready to go in either direction.
Yeah, it's almost like you're actively gambling.
Yeah.
Right. You got your chips on the table, but at any point, and this is what things people don't do in Vegas, which is like take their chips off the table. Because it's seen as bad manners. But it is not seen as bad manners here. If you got your chips on multiple things and you realize, you know what? I can't do Elementalist anymore, so this cannon actually went super down in value, but I can do this. Don't be afraid to get rid of stuff, especially if it's going to put you at like a 10, 20, 30 gold level. I've seen a lot of people hold on to stuff, just hoping on a dream, on a prayer, and it's not going to do you well if you're not going to understand that sometimes that extra gold from the interest is actually worth more in keeping yourself open to other ideas.
Yeah, as soon as you find that third cannon, you're like, cannon, good. Cannon, 2-star, sell the Dravens. That ship has now sailed.
Yeah.
And I'm moving on to this plan. I'm enacting, you know, I'm going left, not right.
Yeah.
The worst you can do is like the game tells you you're going left, and you're like, but I still might go right for a long time.
Because that was my
that's
first
like,
pick. It was one that has an item on it already.
Yeah, that's 8 gold that's sitting there not earning interest, or that you can't reinvest or re-roll to find the rest of your comp.
Right.
You got to be willing to like ditch it, go in the direction that the game's telling you to go.
And hey, this is a skill testing thing, and knowing exactly when to do it and when not to do it is hard. Sometimes just do it. You really have not that much to lose. Do it in random regular games if you don't want to do it in ranked. But just try this thing where it's like, you know, I'm going to wholesale my bench so I can get to 20. Or I'm going to do this and see what happens, see if it works out. And try not to get, I guess FOMO is the right way of putting it, or the results-oriented thinking, where you roll the dice again and boom, that same unit comes up within the third one. Try not to like focus in on that. Focus in on what the other options are. Maybe there's another unit in that 5 that's like, shoot, actually, that's where I want to go with this comp.
I think something that happens to me a lot, and I don't know if you deal with this, but I think it's kind of human nature. Is like if I just won the last game and it was because I had a Gnar that was just beastly and the Gnar carried me. There's a tendency to like value Gnar really highly in the current game, even though that has nothing to do with the last game. So a Gnar will come around and I will be nowhere near Wilder Shapeshifter, and I'm like, ooh, Gnar, grab the Gnar.
Well, I remember I had a great experience with Gnar last time. It's like, there's nothing in your comp going for it.
Yeah, the Gnar's not good for you in this game. You have to be willing to, and able to separate that from the games of the past and do what the draft is telling you is available to you
even
right now.
Within a game, having a really early guarantee, it's like, this is the best unit. It's always going to do well. But now you have a damage tracker that comes along in the new update that you can actually see if a unit's starting to fall down in efficacy and see if they're doing well. And sometimes you do have to get rid of those early units. I would say 50% of the time I'm selling the first unit I buy to get the item off of them. So don't get too attached.
All right. The last part of sort of pivoting your team comps or choosing how to build your team comp is keeping tabs on everyone's board.
Yeah.
So, and this is for maybe different reasons than we talked about. In the past, I sort of mentioned like, oh, I like to look at the top couple of people near the mid game, see what they're building so I can start building counter comps to theirs. I don't think that's actually in ranked as good of an idea because you're not trying to get first place.
Yeah.
You're trying to get top 4. So you just want the best possible comp you can get. Even if it loses every time to the number 1 person, that's okay if it beats everybody else, right?
Yes.
So what I'm really looking for early is what units they're building and they're starting to 2-star and really invest in, what their bench looks like. Because if I click down the list, or what is it, number 3 that goes down?
You can bind it to whatever you want, but you can switch between boards,
So as I'm clicking down the list and looking at what everybody's building, if it's like Darius, if I see 3 Darius out there, well, I don't want to get near Darius because I'm going to be fighting over it with all those people.
Especially for the higher cost units because they're both rare to roll and people need them specifically as key units to a comp.
Yeah, so I'm really looking, being like, oh, this person's shapeshifters. 2 players are in shapeshifters. I got to stay away. I'm going to go into something else. I don't want to be fighting with 2 other players for the same units.
But I should be building Mana Burn instead. Yeah, definitely. And also check out what their gold's looking like, whether or not they're on winning or losing streaks. It's a lot to keep track of. In general, I just flip through and I try and see if there's like one crazy hyper carry. And then I look on their bench, are they trying to match this thing? Or I go through being like, hey, I want to know, should I buy this person on my bench? Takes you 10 seconds to go through and see if anyone else is doing it.
I like looking at the gold. You can see how many little treasure boxes everybody has.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll be in like 3rd place and I'll click at the top 2 people and they have 0 treasure boxes and I've got 2. And I'm feeling like, okay, that's pretty good.
That's actually pretty good, yeah.
I'm competitive and I'm actually a little ahead on resources. So I don't necessarily even need to push right now because they're not going to. But if you're like losing, you're near the bottom and you've got 5 treasure chests and you look at the top and they've got 5 treasure chests, you're like, uh-oh, I better
doing something wrong. Yeah,
I better spend here.
Time to roll out.
Yeah.
Autobots.
Roll out, transform. All right, let's talk about items because in true fashion for a game like this, our very last episode was
best items.
And
they are no longer the best, but they're still good, but they're just not as good as other items. We're an equal item opportunity employer over here.
Our top 4 items before the patch, I don't think any of them are top 4 anymore.
RFC might still make it.
Okay.
We'll give props to RFC for maintaining the throne in a way because some other items have gotten much better again because of the new aggressive nature of how ranked is working. And take this with a grain of salt as well. If you're playing normal, some of the old items we talked about might still be very effective.
There's been some changes also because of the patch. They changed a bunch of characters.
Yes.
So that their abilities are on-hit abilities. So like Volibear is one of the big ones.
Warwick.
Yasuo. Yeah.
So basically what on-hit means is that you have 2 kinds of attacks in general. You're doing a regular attack, like Warwick will swipe at you, and then you have an ultimate. When they get to full man, they do an extra ability. Now, normally the ultimate ability does not count as them hitting you, and items that say you have a chance to do this, attacks have a chance to do this, won't happen. However, certain champs now can do that. So Warwick, when he ultis, it counts as an on-hit attack.
And yeah, Volibear is a really good one because his attack sort of chains to other characters that are close, which means all those are on hit. So there's some items like the Curse Blade. Well, the Curse Blade got better in 2 ways. One is there's more. Sorry, let me read it. It's the one that says attacks have a low chance to shrink
the enemy's
star level by 1. there's two things that they changed, right? One is that it actually will shrink a 1-star unit
to
down
a
to
0-star unit.
Yeah, or like a half-star unit or something. But it works on 1-star units where it didn't used to. And now, these other characters, especially Volley, smacks something, after it uses ability, smacks something, it'll chain to other characters and have a chance to shrink all of them too.
Yeah, which is really important, especially if Volley's got high attack speed. Blade Master also really helps out with this. Gunslingers as well, I believe, is triggers on hit now. So there's a lot. I mean, and again, this could change by the next patch, but the important thing here is looking for the words on hit and reading the patch notes to see, oh, this is now going to proc on hit, this isn't, and you can start building things better that way. But Cursed Blade, aka the Shrink Ray, has destroyed me.
It has gone way up. I want one on somebody in almost every match because it's that good. Hush, which is the silent blade, the one that makes it so they can't use their ability.
Yeah, exactly.
They get the little thought bubble,
like
cartoon talk thing going.
It's kind of like when a Fiddlesticks ults you.
Yeah.
That thing going or throws a little bird between you, gives you the little silence. Yeah, and this is a high chance. I believe they said it was at 50% on PvE every attack, but that could also again change as well. But the big thing is that this stops enemies from using some of their biggest abilities, especially ones that really turn the tide of the game, like Kindreds, Cho'Gaths, Sejuanis, things that would really completely shift the tide. Same with Gnar as well. I've seen it just stop a shapeshifter before.
Yeah, and if you're swinging fast enough, you can keep something just silenced for the whole. That's it. They're never, like, as long as you're hitting them, they're just not getting out from under it. And again, Volley, another one, can silence multiple units.
Yep.
Pretty crazy.
Yep.
Okay, so the next category of items that we're going to talk about is the ones that give team buffs.
Get buff.
And both of these got changed. They used to give buffs sort of in a circle. Anything that
adjacent allies,
yeah, any adjacent square would get the buff. And
hexagon, excuse me, Josh.
Any adjacent hexagon. My bad. Now they do it in a horizontal line. So 2 to the right and 2 to the left of the character that's wearing the item will get the buff. And there's 2 items that do this that we're going to talk about. Zeke's Herald is the one that gives adjacent allies 15% attack speed.
Serious. Very, very serious stuff.
Yeah, so at the beginning of combat, it gives it to those units, and then for the rest of that battle, they have plus 15% attack speed.
And when you place the unit with the Zeke's Herald or the Locket, you'll see the squares, or hexagons, darn it, illuminate underneath them. I'm just thinking chess. And so you'll know who's being affected. The same goes for Locket of Iron Solari. Instead of, I believe it was 200 shields before, now it's 300 shields. It no longer scales off of ability power, so sorcerers don't just make this item nuts. But what they did as a result is buff the items individually. So Zeke's
Herald, kind of got better for non-sorcerers.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. And they stack. That's the big thing. So if you have 2 lockets, everything that's affected is getting plus 600 shields.
Yep.
Or plus 30% attack speed.
Zeke's, oh my gosh.
And Zeke's was 10% before, and it's up to 15. Locket was 200, now it's 300. So they were both bumped by an additional 50%, basically. Any gamer will know when patches for games come out. If something got buffed, you should test it out right away because that's absolutely the most likely place where they made a mistake and something's kind of broken.
I mean, and also League does have this habit where every time they introduce a new champion, it tends to be very powerful, and that the small balance changes in the game, as delicate as this, can really sway things up and down. So as a result, Zeke's Herald is by far one of the best items in this new meta.
Yeah, it's I've been playing around with it a lot. I think I've done Assassin's, Zeke's Herald, stacking up 2 to 3 Zeke's Herald on like your Zed and just putting Assassins all in the back line for the last like 5 games. And I went second, first.
Seems effective.
If you ever get 3
45% attack speed bonus.
And all your things are critting plus 350%. So it's just like you just one shot. And you're attacking so fast.
Yeah, that's insane. And you're also building to ultimates faster. You're getting to everything faster. So yeah, Zeke's Herald, attack speed in general is one of that's why everyone was so excited about Ginsu's Rageblade originally, because it promised so much attack speed. Something like Zeke's Herald, think about it this way. Would you want one unit gaining a small amount of attack speed every unit? Or do you want to make one item for the same amount, 2 items, that affects 4 units, and it's all together at
5
base
units.
1. Yeah, 5 units. All together, it's going to get them 60% attack speed across all of them. That's massive.
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful item. I think might be my favorite item in the game right now. I think it might be the most powerful. It's up there.
Mine's still really Cursed Blade.
I think Warmog's got a lot better. We're not going to talk about it that much this this episode, but on shapeshifters specifically because they changed the way that worked. That got a lot better.
Well, speaking of defensive items,
Yes.
that is our last category, and Warmog's armor is on there, as
there you go.
is Phantom Dancer and Dragon Claw, which are items that we have talked about. These, I would say, they kind of fall into the same, I guess, concept in my head, which is one of them is very good against physical attacks and crits, and one of them is very, very good against magic damage. Now, Phantom Dancer, you're dodging all critical strikes. Dragon Claw, it's 83% resistance to magic damage, and Warmog's armor is now regenerating 6% of missing HP per second. I believe that's up.
It was 3% of total HP, and now it's 6% of missing HP. So once your champion is at 50% health, it's a buff from what it was before. And so it also scales super well with shapeshifters specifically because their buff gives them additional hit points.
Right.
And it'll scale with that. And so you can get these Nars and Shyvanas that just cannot be killed if you have 2 Warmogs on them, because once they get to 50% health or so, they just start regenerating 600, 700 HP per second. Because the Warmog itself grants 400 more hit points, and then they get 60% of that 400 also.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
One of the big things the reasons why it's really good on them, as well as the fact that it scales with their health, is that if their mana bar is going up faster than their health bar is going down, you've got a successful shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Congrats, you did it. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
It also is really good on like Volibear and a bunch of other characters now. I think I saw a Garen the other day that was like a carry Garen that had a Warmogs on it.
Yeah.
The change definitely made Warmogs better, and I think a lot of you don't want it on your Varus or something like that that's not going to take damage, but your frontline carry types or even just your frontline tanks can just make them so beefy that they soak up so much more damage.
One final thing I want to mention is that the spatula's interaction with items has changed a little bit. It'll still turn you into a demon or whatever, but this time it'll actually double the original stat of the item. Because originally it used to be if you put a plus 20 armor and a plus 20 attack item together, you get both in the next item. With the spatula, you weren't given an additional bonus, you were just given the class. So try and experiment around. I think there's a lot more possibilities now that you're going to get buffed from that. And also, Runon's Hurricane is going to proc on-hit attacks.
Well, and then think about demons turning the on-hit stuff into demons. So Volibear turn into a demon is so much better now because it could mana burn because that's on-hit stuff.
Right.
And I've found demons to be way better than they were. And I'm often including 2 demons in a lot of comps. Something else to keep in mind is that the spiders that Elise hatches, they count as demons, so they will they will mana burn stuff.
They will also have a percentage chance mana burn. They won't add to your buff, but they will take the percentage chance that you have and mana burn for that. Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, so demons just, a good addition. I don't think you ever go up to 6 demons really, but 2 to 4 of them is useful. So,
all right. Well, I guess before we end this episode, Josh, what rank are you right now?
I'm silver 1. I'm about to get to gold. I'm really close.
You've been grinding then.
Well, I haven't played that many games. The 5 placement matches and probably like.
Have you been listening to like any podcasts about how to get better?
I've been trying to make a podcast, so I've been like really concentrating on trying to like learn the meta and focus.
Nice.
Watching some streaming and stuff. How about you?
I just hit bronze 3, which is great. I started at iron 1. Everyone starts at iron 2, by the way, and then based on your placement matches, they'll put you somewhere. Andrew is also just hitting into silver 1, so he's gonna hit gold soon. So I can't wait. We're gonna be. You
haven't had a chance to rank that much yet.
I played 7 games total. Yeah. But by the time you hear the next podcast, I expect to be golden.
If gold, not, Jimmy Gold.
Gold. I'm gold.
All right. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter at TF Tactical, because that's where we're going to be aggregating all the information as it comes in. We have people that are following that account, following other accounts and sort of retweeting, gathering information.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good place for you to go if you want to get the latest about, incoming patches,
what the developers are saying.
Yeah, and Jimmy and I are tweeting a lot. He's at JF Wong. I'm at Josh Lee Kwai. We'll also retweet it at the TF Tactical account. If I find something that I think is like broken, like Zeke's on Assassins, I'm tweeting about it. If I Warmogs on Shapeshifters, I'm tweeting about it.
We want to share this information because the chances of us seeing you in queue are very low. There are a lot of people playing this game. Everyone needs to learn how to win.
And the whole reason to make this podcast and make content is to help everybody else out there. And, as people learn the tricks that we've got now, we develop new ones and, ebb and flow, and that's how gaming should work. So that's part of the fun of it.
But you're part of the TF Tactical Club, and look, if you don't want to follow a bunch of different accounts at Riot, you can just follow this one, and then choose which one you want to follow from there. So make sure you follow us on Twitter.
Also, you can tweet at us or let us know in the comments on this video what subject matter and topics you'd like us to talk about next.
Good one.
Okay, our editors are Andrew and Jimmy.
Hello. That's me.
It's a team effort here.
You know, if you like this game and you like the drafting aspect where you're picking cards and playing them, you should definitely check out the Command Zone podcast and Game Nights, which is basically why we're here. This is normally a set for League of Legends stuff. I mean, Magic stuff. We just put some League of Legends stuff in the background. I don't know if you can see it.
It all works because they're both medieval themed generally.
Yeah. We're kind of in this, you know, and we happen to have these, we happen to be in Runeterra? Freljord, the Freljord.
Yeah.
We're very good at the lore of this game. But yeah, make sure you check out the Command Zone podcast, Game Nights. It's an amazing show. Josh directs and edits it, and that's still up there. The best content ever made on YouTube.
Still up there.
Still up there. Yet to be dethroned. Make sure you check it out.
Yeah, remember, Game Nights, Nights with a K.
Yeah, good point.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
And we'll see you out there.